Hello, everybody, and welcome to my weekly live Q&A. My name is Danny Segura. I am a mixed martial arts reporter for MMAJunkie.com. And yes, like I said, this is my weekly live Q&A where I answer all your questions regarding the combat sports world and much more. So the way you get in questions is two very simple ways. One is via Twitter. That's the preliminary way to get questions in. And the other way to get questions in, which, by the way, the Twitter questions are closed now, would be through the YouTube live chat. So if you didn't get to submit questions via Twitter, no worries. You can throw that on the live chat, on the YouTube live chat, and I will get to those questions then on the later part of this video. So we first tackle Twitter. That gets priority on this live Q&A. All right? So a lot to talk about. We got a big card coming up in Vegas this weekend. Also, we just wrapped up UFC Vegas 5 with Derek Brunson and Edmen Shahbazyan. We also have a pay-per-view looming with UFC 252 coming up. And there's been a good amount of news as well. So there's plenty to talk about. I think there always is. But yeah, good week to talk some MMA. So let's get right into it. Hope everyone's doing well. I'm a Colombian coffee, sporting 90s Parma jersey. Parma, some of the most beautiful jerseys in football history. All right, let's get into it. So, Liam O'Brien, and this was the last question. This was right on the buzzer, too, for Twitter, asks, has there been a more rapid improvement by a fighter under a new coach than Brunson's move to Florida under Henry Hooft for his last 3 fights? So, great question here. And as you guys may know, Derek Brunson picked up a huge win over Edmen Shahbazyan over the weekend on the main event of UFC Vegas 5. It was a 3-round contest as opposed to 5 because it kind of took a late notice bump on the card because Irene Aldana was forced to withdraw from her main event bout with Holly Holm because she tested positive for COVID-19. So instead, Derek Brunson steps up. They still kept it a 3-rounder. And we thought that, well, a lot of people, most people thought I'd think that Edmen Shahbazyan was going to pick up a win. He's proven that he can dismantle veterans before and with some ease. Derek Brunson, a guy that's 36 years old, deep into his career. At this point, most people think his better days are behind him. Everything just pointed for this to be the right move for Edmen Shahbazyan, for this to be the right matchup and frankly, the right victory to put him in conversation where he becomes a title contender. But Derek Brunson had other plans for Shahbazyan and changed that. So, very impressed with Derek Brunson. I think I'll leave the question up in case people are tuning in. Very impressed by Derek Brunson. I think he's changed a lot. I don't necessarily think that he's done a huge change as far as like a fighter and technique wise. I think what has made him great till this moment, that was still very much there. It's just his game is a little bit more polished and he's fighting a lot smarter. And that was the biggest issue. It wasn't that he lacked weapons. It wasn't like, ooh, he's got a horrible ground game. He needs to improve that, or his striking's really bad. It really wasn't about that. And yes, you can always make improvements in your game, but his main criticism was surrounding his style and his decision making in fights. Like he wasn't fighting the smartest way, at least to win, right? Maybe the smartest way to put on exciting fights, but certainly not to be successful in the UFC and pick up victories. So, and even then, he still managed to, be in the rankings, be up there, and get some solid wins here and there. So, very impressed by Derek Brunson. I think, this is a more mature Derek Brunson. This is a Derek Brunson that's a little bit more calculated, a little bit more measured with his technique and the type of decisions that he takes during fights. And as far as the rapid improvement, again, I don't think it was much of an improvement as far as his technique. I'm sure there's been some degree of improvement as he's always training and always looking to polish and tighten everything up. But I think it was really more about fight management and fight IQ and slowing things down and actually thinking through while you're in the fight. So with that being said, I don't think he would be the fighter that improved the most. I think there are other fighters out there that you can probably put up there above him as far as like quick improvement, that you see him in one fight be a certain type of fighter, then the next fight they're completely different. I'm trying to think right now on the top of my head who are some good examples to mention here of fighters that have just increased and just become much better fighters, well, after one fight. I think Sean O'Malley is a good example. I think he's obviously picked up a lot of skills and has gotten better. If you look at his first fights in the UFC compared to his last one, it's night and day. Another good example would be Brandon Moreno. It's a guy that really came into the UFC as a jiu-jitsu player. He didn't really have much striking. And nowadays, today, Brandon Moreno has some of the best boxing at 125 pounds. So that's clear improvement, right? It's not really fight management. It's not really a different mentality. It's not really maturing. It's really improvement in technique and that kind of thing. So I get what you're saying, Liam. I think it's a great question. I do think we're seeing a lot of improvement from Brunson, and I think we are seeing a different version. But I don't think I think he's a smarter fighter. I don't think he's a much better fighter than what he used to. And I'm sure he's gotten better. Don't get me wrong. But to answer your questions, yeah, and his transformation has been quite noticeable, and obviously, with this latest 3-fight win streak, training under Henry Hooft has been a smart idea. So we'll see what's next for Brunson. I'm going to quickly look at the rankings here and see kind of where he could potentially go next. Now, he's on a 3-fight win streak over names that are kind of like top 10, outside of the top 10, right? And, those are the kind of names you want to beat in order to build a base to get top opponents. So I think at this point in time, having gone 3-0, I think he's past fighting the guys that are between 10 and 15 and lower. So I think he should get someone top 10. So let's see who's here. So we know Paulo Costa, who's ranked number 2, is fighting Israel Adesanya, so you can't count those out. You can't count those for this specific exercise. Then Robert Whittaker's fighting Jared Cannonier, so that's out of the picture as well. Jack Hermanson is looming. He's just coming off a big win over Kelvin Gastelum. So Jack Hermanson versus Derek Brunson, could it make sense? Let me pull up here Jack Hermanson's record. So Jack Hermanson is also on a... Okay, no, so he did lose to Jared Cannonier. So that, obviously, I remember that fight last September. It kind of... before that, he was on a nice little run. And yeah, that kind of got halted, and now he bounced back with a win over Kelvin Gastelum. So he's in a position that he needs wins, and he needs fights. So I think this particular matchup with Derek Brunson would make sense. Derek Brunson versus Jack Hermanson. Perhaps Jack Hermanson will want somebody ranked higher. He's ranked pretty high up, number 4. But dude, you literally just are coming off a very recent... You're not coming off, but you had a very recent defeat. So at this point, you just need fights and to get some momentum behind you. And I think Derek Brunson would be a fine name for that. Yeah. Also, there's a few pending fights, so we'll see what happens between those, because that could change the equation around. All right. The MMA Casual asks, how is Hachi doing? He's doing fine. He's right here laying right next to me. And thanks for asking. Yesterday, we had a little bit of a scary moment. It wasn't too bad, but at the moment, it really did piss me off quite a lot. I live in Brooklyn. I'm out here in New York, and a lot of Brooklyn people own dogs. Obviously, you just walk around and you see a lot of, people just walking their dogs, which is very normal. And yeah, and then this, I was across the street. I was getting ready to cross the street. Obviously, the light is green, so there's cars passing by. I'm not going to cross the street. And I was a little bit before the actual crosswalk. So I'm just chilling there, Hachi sniffing around. And I see a dog on the other side of the street. And the owner literally is walking around, stops, looks at me. And then his dog's kind of pulling towards my dog being across the street. And then he's just sitting there. So... And literally, probably a good 20 seconds pass. He's just sitting there, and he's just looking at me and Hachi and his dog as well. So I'm assuming, he wants our dogs to greet, which is very normal. And I'm assuming if you want that and you're looking for your dog to meet with our dog, that your dog is okay being around other dogs, right? You're not going to... Common sense would be you're not going to bring a dog to someone and if it has, aggressive problems. So... I'm like, okay. So then, light turns red. I walk across the street, and they're just waiting there for us. And then they start sniffing each other, and then the dog bites Hachi on the back. And then I pull Hachi back, and I'm like, yo, what the fuck? Like, if your dog is aggressive and is not good with other dogs, don't put it on, don't bring it to my dog. And he's like, oh, sorry, man. It's just like, dude, you're a fucking idiot. Because something could really go wrong. I mean, what if he bites an eyeball, right? Like, then what? Hachi's blind for the rest of your life? Oh, sorry, bro. Like, get the fuck out of here, dude. I feel like slapping the shit out of that dude. Oh, man, just talking about it gets me angry. People are just so dumb. People are just so dumb. If anything, at least give me a heads up. Hey, man, my dog sometimes naps. I don't know if you want to. And then it's up to me, my discretion, if I want Hachi to sniff him or not, But at least give me a heads up so at least I'm on edge. Don't play off as your dog's cool when you're trying to meet dogs and then your dog has, anger issues. Like, that is not cool. And Hachi's all right. He obviously he got a little startled at the time. I got really pissed. But yeah, everything's fine. Everything's fine. But people are just so dumb. All right. Next question is by 8 Passive Wokeness. 155 is still a mess and jammed up at the top. We finally get a title fight in October. Conor retired. Do we get Tony versus Justin? Matchup top 10. Which sounds best? Felder versus Charles. Hooker versus Cowboy. And where does Kevin Lee fit into all of this? Wow, that's a name that I haven't heard in a while. Kevin Lee. Let's see. Looking at the lightweight division right now, or at least the UFC lightweight rankings. So finally, we got a fight between Khabib Nurmagomedov and Justin Gaethje. It's not like finally as in we were waiting for it and or maybe not wait for it, but like we were hoping for it, and then the UFC decided to book it. No, we knew this fight was going to happen. The problem here was the date, because the pandemic obviously halted things, and then Khabib couldn't fight Tony Ferguson, so we got Gaethje, Tony Ferguson, which prolonged things as far as the actual title picture. And then with the death of Khabib's father, which is obviously very unfortunate, you got Daniel Cormier out there saying, a few weeks ago that he didn't even know if Khabib was going to return to MMA, and he was definitely not fighting this year. And I think that obviously set off a lot of alarms in people. Like, wait a minute. He hasn't defended his belt since last September, and you're telling me he's not going to fight to September 2019. You're telling me he's not going to fight on 2020. That is a lot of issues for the UFC lightweight division. But it looks like Khabib is going to fight, and props to him, because obviously we know how important his father was, being his father, and obviously being a huge coach as well as friend, and just a huge presence and influence in his life. So yeah, he's returning, and I hope pretty shitty situations, but within all that, I hope he's handling the best that he possibly can, and he's okay. Which seems he is, obviously, by taking a fight with a very dangerous Justin Gaethje. So that's a good thing for the UFC lightweight division. The fact that fight is going on and it's not going to get prolonged. And then if you just look at the division, you got Dustin Poirier, who really, I think, for a bit was a bit forgotten. And it's like, yeah, you lost to Khabib. Like, all right, dude, just fight, right? And I think 8 Passive Wokeness would agree with me, as he was a Dustin Poirier hater. However, the guy was like, okay, I'll fight. Took on the young gun, the guy that was coming up, the young killer in Dan Hooker. Amazing fight, one of the best fights I've ever seen, and just completely puts on a championship type performance and puts away and beats Dan Hooker. So now at this point, I feel like with that type of performance, Dustin Poirier really set himself apart from the pack. And I think, I definitely want to see him back in the title picture, because he's championship material. But, you guys know me. I don't like fighters, and this is nothing personally to Dustin Poirier, but I don't like fighters that either are former champions and lose the belt, and then they get one fight and they're right back in there, or vice versa. Title challengers lose in the championship fight, come back, win one fight, and then all of a sudden they're fighting for the title again. That to me doesn't make much sense. So I think he should take another fight. I don't think his road back to the title should be long, because he's clearly a very good fighter. He's clearly a world-class fighter, and world-class fighters should be at the top and should be in title pictures. So I think one more fight should be sufficient for him to get back up there. I think the Tony Ferguson is the right fight. I think Tony Ferguson also is in a position that, yes, he lost to Justin Gaethje, but I think the circumstances leading up to that fight, as well as just everything, was really unfair for Tony Ferguson. So I'd love to give him a pass and be like, not cancel that loss to Justin Gaethje, because Justin Gaethje performed very well, and obviously he deserves to fight for the title, and he is. But certainly, I don't think we should forget about Tony Ferguson. I think we should have a bit of an asterisk there on that fight. So I think, look, one win put you right back in there, especially if Khabib is champion. I don't know about you guys, but I know it's not the same because the 12-fight win streak is gone, but I do have some interest in still watching Tony Ferguson versus Khabib Nurmagomedov. And so, yeah, I think, that fight makes sense. Dustin Poirier versus Tony Ferguson, 2 versus number 3. Winner gets crack at the champion. That'd be a good fight. Things could get maybe dicey if Justin Gaethje were to beat Khabib Nurmagomedov and then Tony Ferguson were to beat Dustin Poirier. I think at that point, you gotta maybe you can make that fight, but you do have to kind of pause and relook at things. But that's two big what ifs. So yeah, I'd make that fight. And then as far as the other suggestions, Paul Felder, I don't know what his deal is. He wants to fight, but not really. Don't really know where he's at in his career right now and where he's at as far as his mentality. But I'd like to see him, or I'd like to kind of keep him out of the equation until we kind of find out what he's trying to do. I think the interesting component there is Charles Oliveira, young guy coming up, clearly picking apart everyone that's below him and needs a big name. So I think revisiting, believe it or not, the Anthony Pettis fight. I know Anthony Pettis is not currently in the UFC lightweight rankings, but revisiting that fight that once happened at 145 could be fun. Donna Cerrone as well. I think at this point, Charles Oliveira has beaten the guys that are good guys that are in the rankings. I think at this point he needs a little bit of a name to kind of get him up there and link him with the bigger names that populate the top of the lightweight division. So I think an Anthony Pettis, a Donald Cerrone could make sense. A Paul Felder one would make sense, but again, Paul Felder, I don't know what his deal is at the moment, and yeah, I think that's kind of the move for Charles Oliveira. But I think that's the interesting component there. That's the fresh face and a face that I'd like to see in the title picture. All right, Michael Terrell asks, do you gamble on MMA or sports in general? So I have before, but I don't do it, So I would say no, but I've done it. I've bet on football and hasn't panned out. A few times you win, but always when you win, you're usually betting for a slight favorite, so you don't win a whole lot. And if you lose, everything. So to be honest, I'm not a huge fan on gambling on sports, especially MMA, because MMA is so wild. Anyone has a chance any given night. So I have done it before, so, when I was a fan. It does make fights more interesting, especially if you're watching them as a fan. It makes them a little bit more enjoyable because it feels like you have stake in the bout. It feels like, you got something to lose, literally. So it does spice things up. And I think if you're a fan, even if you're not really thinking about making money, if you're going into betting, I feel like trying to make profit and making this like a business, I feel like that's a horrible idea. But if you're just there to have fun, maybe get lucky and get some money out of it and just have some stake in the fights, I think that's cool. I think that's very cool. I think that's fun. I mean, like I said, I've done it before, and it certainly spiced things up for me as far as watching sports, whether it's MMA or football. But yeah, as far as like right now, me being a journalist, I don't think it'd be... I don't know how problematic it would be. I think it would be maybe okay, but I still don't feel 100% confident or comfortable doing that because, again, I want to be as unbiased as possible. Again, being completely 100% unbiased is almost impossible, but you should strive for that, right? It's impossible to be perfect, but you strive for perfection. So one of the things that I can do is not put money on fights, because then if I'm judging a fight and I have to give my honest score at the end of it, which I always like to submit it at MMA Decisions, because I think it's great that there's someone out there keeping track of all decisions, as well as media members' decisions as well. So if I'm submitting that and I have a little bit of skin in the game, I might go one way or another. Maybe, I don't know. I haven't tried it, but I would assume it could influence. I don't know. And I wanted to eliminate that. So no, I don't gamble on it or bet on MMA or sports in general. Not anymore. Maybe I'll do soccer. Maybe I'll do something actually now that you mentioned this. Maybe I'll do something on Atletico Madrid winning the Champions League this year, because I think they got a chance. I mean, we beat the champions, the former champions, Liverpool, with a fantastic performance, and then we got Leipzig in the next leg. So, I think probably one of the weaker teams in the entire bracket. So, it gives us a good chance to get in there and advance to the next stage. So maybe I'll bet on Atletico. That'd be fun. And if they win and I make some money, that'd be amazing. I'll do that. Yeah. Let's see here. The Seaside. Can you translate what Valerie said about Macy? So, for those that don't know, I started a Spanish language podcast with MMA Junkie and USA Today Sports. It's called Hablemos MMA. It's 100% dedicated to the sport of mixed martial arts, but everything in Spanish. On Monday, yesterday, was the second episode, and it featured Valerie Loureda, who fights this Friday at Bellator 243 against Tara Graf. So I talked to her about various things. It was a very good interview. It was in Spanish, obviously, like I mentioned. And one of the things that we talked about, which the Seaside is asking here, was basically the drama or the beef that she got involved in with Macy, and that's not the way you spell it. I think that's how you spell Macy Barber, but this is not Macy Barber. This is maybe Chasson, right? The chick that won the Ultimate Fighter, she fights at 135. I believe she won the Ultimate Fighter at 145, right? And anyways, she basically kind of slid on one of her posts in the comment section and basically said like, "Whoa, like you're not sending the right message to the community. You are selling sex instead of MMA. Like this is a disgrace. This and that." And that, for people that weren't aware, it sparked a back and forth between them two, and then it sparked a broader conversation in MMA, because I saw a lot of other female athletes comment about this, and somewhere on one side, somewhere on the other. So basically, I wanted to get like her side of the story as far as like what happened and I guess what's your standpoint on all this. And her answer, to translate here for the Seaside, was basically saying like, look, first of all, don't judge anyone. Like, just do you. Like, don't worry about what I'm doing. Like, she was telling me she's into tattoos. Get tatted up if that's your thing. I'm into dancing. I'm a Latina. I was born in Miami. I got Cuban heritage. I dance salsa. I'm a dancer. Like, I'm going to dance. I'm going to post videos of me dancing, and I'm going to live my life and have fun and do, be who I am. And that's that. Like, don't worry about me. And then she was also saying, as far as responding to like the accusations of like, oh, you're selling, sex or whatever, not MMA. She's like, look, I'm actually like a lifelong martial artist. I've been doing Taekwondo since I was, like 3 years old. I've been involved in martial arts my entire life. Obviously her father is, I believe, a coach, right? A Taekwondo coach. And she's like, yeah, like I've been doing competitions since I was a little girl. So don't pull that card on me. Like, I'm just like someone that's hot, that's using the MMA platform and the MMA world to kind of sell my brand and everything. No. I'm first a martial artist, and I've obviously proven that with my background and, undefeated in MMA so far. So, I agree with her, man. Like, do you. Like, don't worry about what others are doing. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you don't like it, then don't do it. That's pretty much my really my motto, kind of in dealing with a lot of things, as far as what people tell other people what they should do and what they shouldn't do. If you don't think it should be done, then don't do it. But don't stop others from doing it. As long as it's not like a detriment or something bad or a detriment to society, right? But me being Latino, me having lived in Miami and kind of grown up down there, I very much know the culture. And look, I have a lot of friends that are Latinas, and they also do TikTok videos, dancing, reggaeton. They have very much similar posts to what Valerie, throws out there on Instagram. So to me, it's nothing crazy. So I don't think that because she's a fighter, a professional fighter, that she should like give up her rights to have an Instagram account, or do TikTok. Like, So yeah, that was pretty much it. That was in Spanish on the interview. I'm actually gonna do a write up on that today in English and translate everything. So in case you want more details about it and actually look at her actual quotes and her actual thoughts on the whole matter, there'll be a story up on that on MMAJunkie.com, and I'll tweet it out obviously from my account. So stay tuned to that. But great interview, and thank you, Valerie, for the time. I really enjoyed that interview. All right. Last question for Twitter questions. This week they were good questions. Don't get me wrong, but we've been stronger a few weeks back. I know I kind of threw the post up late, a little bit of my fault there. But I've been juggling and been busy with a lot of things. Obviously, with the launch of my new podcast, that's been a lot of work. Plus, just keeping up with my regular work schedule as well. So I've been adjusting to all these changes. So, I apologize for sort of the late push for this live Q&A, but always, unless I say there won't be, always expect a live Q&A on Tuesday. And I actually have a little bit of an announcement towards the end about I guess the future and some of the things that I'm doing here. So yeah, stay tuned for the end of this video. All right, the next question is by Oral Health. I can't read that. I got my glasses on. Oral Health Oddball. Oral Health Oddball. I don't know what that means. All right. He says, Conor versus GSP. Thoughts? Good work, man. ESPN or bigger one day. I'm happy here at MMA Junkie. This is great. So I ain't trying to go to ESPN. And from India, it looks like. Shouts out to India. Hopefully you guys are doing all right with all the COVID stuff. I know a while ago I haven't really been keeping up with the news as much, but I know you guys were kind of struggling with it, just like we are here in the U.S. So hopefully all is well. And anyways, Conor versus GSP. Thoughts? I mean, I'm not that into it, to be honest. I'm not really even that into a GSP comeback. I'm just not. And Conor McGregor, I'm still invested in his career. I think, he's obviously a great fighter and very skilled fighter, despite all the other negativity around his career, right? Some of the maybe not so pleasant things. But yeah, I mean, the only thing that I would like about that fight is that, like, it's a big money fight. It brings attention to the sport. Both fighters get to make money, so I'm all in for fighters making money, because that's, especially in MMA, it's not that big of a thing when you compare it to boxing. So big paydays. The bigger the payday gets for these guys, the higher the bar gets set, which is good for everyone. Even if the prelim guys and the rest of the main card doesn't make that amount of money and don't get pay-per-view points, it still elevates the sport. It still pushes the boundary as far as what's possible as far as paydays go. Same thing when one second here. My computer is kind of close to dying. Same thing with kind of like when Joe Rogan landed that, like, what was it, like $100 million deal with Spotify. Obviously, people that are in media, especially in MMA, we're not going to see any of that money. Obviously, it's Joe's podcast, right? We have nothing to do with it. But it does elevate the bar as far as podcasting world and media, and especially someone that's, if it was somebody from another type of, what's it called? World, it would still be nice. But because Joe is so closely linked to MMA, because he's a UFC commentator, right? It's nice because it kind of pushes the boundary as to how far you can go in the podcasting world. Now, I'm not saying here that I can reach Joe Rogan numbers or any of that, but it's still nice, and it probably helps other people that are up there as well. And yeah, especially nowadays that, like, media, for a while, the media business, and they're still trying to figure out a proper business model to be profitable in the digital age. But yeah, like, especially podcasts, there's so many podcasts out there that, over time they kind of, because there's so many, and, it's so easy to do, or at least, yeah, to get something out there, it kind of gets devalued, right, a little bit as far as sponsors and all that goes, right? So having deals that big, it kind of pushes the boundary, and it's kind of a win for people that, content creators, for people that do media. So anyway, I know I kind of went into a little bit of a rant there, but it'd be a similar situation here. So that'd be kind of nice. Both guys make big paydays. Bring up the exposure of MMA, which is always nice. And then on top of that, the only positive I can see as well is that it doesn't disrupt the order of any division, right? Because if GSP were to come back and he wants to fight Khabib, it's going to screw somebody over at 155. Simple as that. If he wants to come back at 170 and fight Kamaru Usman, he's going to screw somebody over at 170. That's just a fact. Why? Because, you got one title shot to award and you got multiple contenders. So if you give it to GSP, other guys are going to have to either wait or fights that necessarily are a bit unnecessary as they're already proven number one contenders, but they got to make money, so they fight and potentially have a similar situation that we saw this weekend with Jennifer Maia and Jojo Calderwood. So that's one thing. It wouldn't disrupt any order of any division. So that'd be kind of nice, right? Because Conor is his own thing and GSP is his own thing. And same thing could be said about Conor. If Conor hops in back at 155 and just asks and demands for a title shot just coming off one win, it could potentially screw somebody over at 155. Same thing at 170. The only good thing about Conor is that he is an active fighter. He's not retired like GSP. So, he's got a little bit more merit to a title shot than GSP as far as just what's going on right now in the sport. Obviously, GSP is one of the greatest of all time, in my opinion, the greatest of all time, and that in itself should get you a lot of merit to get these opportunities. But anyways, I appreciate the good message there, Oral Health Oddball, and or Bale, whatever, appreciate the shout out there. Anyway, so that does it for the Twitter questions. Now we move on to the YouTube live chat, where you guys have been submitting questions because I keep seeing them popping up on the right side of my screen. Let's see here. Just a quick reminder, subscribe to this channel. Hook me up with a thumbs up, with a like. It goes a long way. And share it. Tell your friends about it. It's a good way to get this thing bigger. And if you enjoyed the programming, I'm sure possibly others would. So please do that. Also, you can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Danny Segura TV. My @name is right here, so just a quick reminder. Subscribe, like, follow. All right, now let's move on to the YouTube live chat questions. Liam O'Brien says, thanks, Danny, for answering my question. I'm a big Brunson fan. I was there the night he fought Whitaker, and he's such a different version of himself now. Completely. Yep. Could you turn the volume up? I always have it full blast, but I have trouble hearing. Okay, so I'll turn it up a little bit. I had to make some changes because this is the same mic. You see Chico back there? This is the same mic that I use to record my podcast. And I use a different device to record my podcast, which has different volume thresholds. So I constantly have to adjust between them too. So there could have been a chance that I might have turned down the volume on this mic right here for my computer. So I hope it's better now. I turned it up. I know those were some of the complaints earlier on, and I think I fixed those. But I guess it's popping up again since you're bringing it up. So hopefully this is much louder. I got to make a better habit into speaking to the mic. I sometimes look at the screen and forget to address the mic directly. So anyways, hopefully this is better. I don't know. You tell me. Jorge Washington. Ooh. What are you more afraid of? Francis Ngannou right hand or African snake? Oh my God. Probably both. Yeah, Francis Ngannou. That's not a guy you want to mess with at all. Fun question. I thought I was expecting something else. All right, let's go to Iron Urias. Maybe I can I maybe play you in FIFA? Also, will you pick up the new FIFA in October? Yes, every year I get the new FIFA. I believe, I don't know if it's coming out in October. Did it get pushed? I know it always comes out kind of around September. And September, it's my birthday, so September 17th. So I always get it for my birthday. Either get myself that present or get somebody to give me FIFA. But yes, I'll be getting it. I'm looking forward to it. To be honest, I wasn't a huge fan of FIFA 20. I like 19 a lot better. Thought it was a lot more tactical. FIFA 20, it still kind of had a little bit of that tactical feel as far as like you got to pass a lot and you really got to build up plays. But I don't know. I struggled with it a little bit. Even then, I'm still pretty good, I would say. But I was much better at 19 than 20. So I'm looking forward to the modifications that they do for 21. I hope I hope it's good, because some FIFAs, it kind of depends. The year. There's some years that are better than others. People think it's just the same shit across every year. It's not. They changed the style of play, and you have to adjust to it. Very nice Parma shirt. Thank you. So I'm gonna give a quick shout out to Classic Football Shirts. They're not sponsoring this whatsoever, but for those people that always compliment me on my football jerseys, there's this company, this site called Classic Football Shirts, and they're in the UK, and they collect classic football shirts, and a lot of them are original, a lot of them are player worn as well, and they're extremely expensive, and it's very much like high-end fashion of the football world, and they do really cool stuff with former players and current players as well, like collabs and things like that. They actually had a pop-up store last year in Soho here in New York City, and I went to it, got some gear, and everything's on, if you buy online, it's in pounds, so it's pretty expensive. But dude, there are so many good jerseys there that they keep in pristine quality, that that are from the 80s, 90s, and you can find literally any jersey from any club. They're a fantastic place to that collects jerseys and sells them and makes sure they're well kept and all that. So shouts out to them. They got awesome stuff. Let's see here. All right. Analytical winning the Champions League when they lost the final to Real Madrid. It's interesting how they apparently gassed in extra time. Some might even say it's strange how Real would be so much fitter. There was a lot of things going into that. For one, at the time, our team was much older. We had Godin, we had Gavi, we had Thiago, we had Felipe Luis, we had Juanfran. We just had a much older players already in their 30s. This team is much younger than the years prior. So that was obviously a thing as well. Also, Real Madrid has a much deeper roster to compete in cups, in league, and in the Champions League. So they have a bigger roster to, like, at least world-class roster to rotate. So at the end of the season, obviously, Atletico is going to be a little bit more worn out than teams that have more money and have a deeper bench. And also, a big thing of that as well is, like, there was some injuries. Like, Juanfran was injured, and that was a big part of that loss. Obviously, he was a right back, and he could barely run. He was, like, literally, and we had, at the time, in extra time, we didn't have any more substitutions. And yeah, he was, like, literally limping. But, like, he's like, nah, I got to play. I gotta do something. I got to help out in any way. And I believe the final goal came through Real's left side, obviously our right side, and it was a little bit of not Juanfran's fault, but it came through his side, and obviously there was very little he could do with, the current state of his body and his injuries. So, but we'll get him this year, right? Hopefully. Yes, Real has it tough because they lost 2-1 to Man City, right? Yeah, so we'll see how that turns out for them. Oh, wait. This is a good question. Mr. Mojo Rising again. MMA questions. What do you think about Volkanovski Max 3? Can they really make a third fight when Alex won 2 in a row? Seems like the UFC would like to, despite so many other potential great fights. Yeah, I don't get this one. So, all right. So, Volkanovski beats Holloway the first time. Competitive fight. Holloway was game, but I think it was pretty clear who won that night. Volkanovski did. Then they do a rematch. I didn't think there needed to be an immediate rematch. Max Holloway's a great champion. He's a great featherweight, one of the best featherweights of all time, but certainly doesn't have the same history that maybe Aldo had, or maybe some like an Anderson Silva. I don't think it warranted an immediate rematch, but whatever. Certainly not the worst call ever. I think I didn't hate it. It was still the biggest fight in the division. There wasn't a clear contender at 145. There was reasons to believe that fight made sense. Okay. Then the fight rolls out, turns out to be controversial. I thought Max Holloway won, and it turns out that Alex Volkanovski won. So that was a little bit weird. But still, it's 2 wins. I know one's controversial, but the other one wasn't. And it's 2 wins back-to-back. You can't justify a third fight immediately. I would like to see a third fight, yes, at some point in the future, but not right now. Why? Because we just saw 2 back-to-back, and those 2 were in favor of Alexander Volkanovski. So to me, a trilogy fight doesn't make much sense right now, especially because a lot of featherweight fights are about to go down, especially with, I believe, Zabit versus Jair Rodriguez is being talked about, if not close to done, for either September or later this month. So we'll see what happens there. I think that's going to determine the number 1 contender. You got Kelvin Kattar, since has picked up some solid wins as well. And who else am I missing? I feel like I'm missing someone pretty obvious here. Let's see. Looking at the rankings right now. Brian Ortega just fought for the title. It's been a huge long layoff, but Chan Sung Young, if victorious, could be a solid contender. So yeah, I mean, there's some names that are coming up that, in a few months we're going to get a little bit more clarity. I don't think the Holloway fight makes sense, man. I'd like to see him. First of all, I didn't want the immediate rematch, not because I didn't think Holloway deserved it, but I think if you space the fights out a little bit more, 1, they become a little bit bigger. 2, you allow for the fight to look much different than the previous versions, for the most part, usually, because there's some time in between. They fight different opponents. There's evolution between both camps. But yeah, so I'm not in favor of an immediate trilogy fight here. Volkanovski is 2-0. Let him fight some other people. I think he should fight the winner of Zabit versus Jair Rodriguez. And then you should put Max Holloway versus Kelvin Kattar. Sounds a lot of fun. Max Holloway versus... Just bump him down a little bit. Like Max Holloway versus... maybe Chan Sung Young if he were victorious over Brian Ortega, if that fight even goes down. I wouldn't even do the Brian Ortega Chan Sung Young fight because Ortega hasn't fought in 2 years. I don't even know why he's ranked, number 2 at 145 pounds. I think he should ease his way back into it, take on a Jeremy Stevens, take on a Sadiq Youssef, take on a Ryan Hall fight would be amazing, take on a Shane Burgos. There's so many other names, right? So anyways, Chan Sung Young, Max Holloway could be a lot of fun. I think that's kind of the route that I would take with those 2. But yeah, I'm not a fan of that fight. Not because it's not going to be great, because it'll probably be an exciting fight. But again, Volkanovski's 2-0, man. One second here. We got about 15 minutes left. So again, if you got questions, submit them. Again, Mr. Mojo Rising. What do you think about Sean O'Malley's co-main event slot for his fight with Chito? Are the UFC going to push him too quickly if he wins? And how much do you expect the smaller cage to affect O'Malley? So, great question. Chito Vera is fighting Sean O'Malley, and that's a big fight for the division. It's a fight that I think a lot of people have their eyes on, but I don't think it's a fight that people expected for it to be the co-main event. Obviously, you got a former champion in Junior Dos Santos and one of the top contenders in in Jairzinho Rosenstruck on that same card, so you would think they would have a little bit more pop because obviously they're higher up in the rankings. That fight means maybe a little bit more in the division since they're higher ranked, and also you got a former champion involved in the equation. So you would think that maybe would have been the co-main event, but no, they put on Sean O'Malley. On some way, it kind of does make sense because O'Malley is a really big star. Could he be a bigger star than Junior Dos Santos? Maybe with the casuals, no. I think Junior Dos Santos is a bit of a household name. But as far as who's hot right now, no doubt O'Malley's much hotter than both Rosenstruck, who's had a great career and so far, and Dos Santos, who's obviously a former UFC champion. So I'm not surprised by it, but certainly wasn't expecting it. So I think it kind of makes sense, that co-main event, and I'm really excited for that fight. I think it's, apart from the main event, I think it's, the fight that I'm looking forward to the most. So it kind of does make sense that they put it in the co-main event slot. Now, to your question, as far as is the UFC pushing him too quickly, something that they did get with Darren Till, I'm not going to put Edmen Shahbazyan in there because after Edmen Shahbazyan stopped Brad Tavares, the Derek Brunson fight was the type of fight that he needed next, because it's like, all right, you're clearly good. You're clearly fucking these guys up. Let's see what you can do a step above. It was the right time to get the step above. And just because it's the right time, that doesn't mean the prospect will live up to the hype. So anyways, I know I'm going on a bit of a rant here, but the case with O'Malley here, just because he's in a co-main event, that doesn't mean he's getting rushed, because I do think he's getting the right opponent. Chito is super game in this fight. I think he's got obviously a good shot in winning because he's very durable. He's got good jiu-jitsu. He's scrappy. His striking has improved a lot. And at this point in time, it used to be a thing where he wasn't that experienced, but obviously there's still a lot for him to learn. He's still only 27 years of age and still has a long career ahead of him. But with over 20 fights in his record, I think at this point he's got a nice base of experience that serves him well in fights. So Sean O'Malley's not fighting somebody in the top 5 and the top 3, so he's not getting rushed. Now, there's several types of getting rushed, right? There's the type of the competitive rush, which is pretty much what happened with Darren Till. You win 1-2 fights, boom, you're up there fighting for a world title. There's that type of rush, and then there's also the promotional rush, right? We've seen it with Paige Van Zandt, we've seen it with Sage Northcutt, and the promotional rush can also hinder a fighter's career. Sometimes it's too much too soon. Sometimes the lights are too bright and the pressure is too high. So, even though you might be fighting somebody your level, if you're still fighting in a co-main event slot or a main event of a fight night, it still brings a lot of pressure on you and could cause you to cave in under that pressure or really spread yourself thin between too much media obligations and this and that. So yeah, there's two types of rush. So as far as the competitive rush, he's not getting pushed too quickly. He's not getting rushed because Marlon Vera, I think he's a top 15 guy. I don't think he's in the rankings anymore after his most recent loss, which was controversial, but I think he's a top 15. Ranked, very good opponent, but, again, not the most experienced guy in the division and not the highest guy in the rankings. I think this fight, as far as that, is perfect for both. Perfect fight for Chito as well, who's young, 27 years old. So you could maybe make a case for a promotional push, a promotional rush, putting him in a co-main event slot. But if anything, Sean O'Malley's proven that part of having an it factor is being able to handle media and being able to handle fame. And so far, Sean O'Malley being one of the bigger stars in the UFC right now, obviously I'm not going to compare him to Conor McGregor or Jorge Masvidal, but he's certainly a guy that attracts a lot of eyeballs and a guy that is hot in the UFC right now, He's dealt with media. He's dealt with that pressure, that attention completely fine. I mean, the way he's handled himself as far as publicly goes, not just in his fights, has been great, has been on brand. You don't see him getting too famous and getting too cocky and then getting into trouble, crashing a car, drinking, driving, street fighting. You don't see none of that. The dude has handled this quite well. So I don't think he's being rushed right now. I think he's built for attention. I think he actually thrives better under attention. So I think this is perfect for him. A co-main event slot in a big pay-per-view card. His brand is already big. It can get even bigger with this. And he's fighting the right type of opponent in someone that, is on his level, not a champion or top 5, So I think this situation right here is perfect for Sean O'Malley. So I think well done by the UFC, because if he really is the next big thing, I think this is an appropriate step to go towards that direction. And look, I also want to, I know we're talking about O'Malley here because you asked the question, but I also want to point out this is a very good opportunity for Chito Vera. I do believe Chito Vera has a bit of that it factor as well. I think he resonates with the fans. He clearly has learned, he's always known English quite well, even in his back in the days of The Ultimate Fighter. But obviously, living in the U.S., his English has gotten much better, so he can address the English market. He can also address the Latino and Hispanic market, because Spanish is his first tongue. He's the only fighter to come out of Ecuador, at least for now, in the UFC. So he's got a strong following in his country as well. And look, that guy's real as well. You know, he's got the package, the tattoos. Now he's looking like Jake Balvin out there with the pink hair. And he's tough. He's funny. He's interesting. He's also a commentator for UFC Español. So a lot of people have heard him, at least in the Hispanic market, you know, commentate and be sort of that face even when he's not fighting. So I think this is a big opportunity as well for him. You know, he's also an exciting fighter, gets fight of the night every now and then, performance of the night bonuses. So puts on an exciting fight, wins. I think, you know, the UFC could have a strong star in the Latin American scene here. So good opportunity for both young as well. So it's not like you're investing into a fighter that only has a few years left in his or her career. Both these guys are very young, and they're gonna stick around for quite some time. And as far as the cage affecting it, O'Malley fought there when he fought Eddie Wineland, and that didn't seem to affect him. And Chito Vera will literally fight you in the parking lot. Like, that guy will fight anybody, anyone, anywhere. Damn, Mr. Mojo Rising hogging the YouTube questions here. I'm going to do this one real quick so I get to answer the others. All right, so real quickly, one more. LOL. If Cormier wins and looks good, do you expect to hit retire in the ring? I feel like Jones has looked so slow in the last 3 fights since popping. Even a plus 40 Cormier must fancy his chances. Yeah, that's one thing that I was actually thinking of last night. You know, I think for the most part, I think there's a big chance that both guys retire, win or lose, after UFC 252 coming up. Stipe Miocic seems to be having, holy shit, there's a big ass storm out there. Cormier, Stipe seems to be on his way out. Seems this is his last big fight, and he's gonna dip out. That's kind of the feel that I get. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not. And same thing with Cormier. Cormier has actually openly talked about retiring. In fact, he extended his deadline of retirement. He was supposed to retire, last year, I think. So I think there's a good chance that both fighters walk away, except that Jon Jones factor. Because although both guys are probably have achieved a lot in the sport, and I think they're both satisfied with what they've done. Money still talks. I don't think they have any interest in fighting Francis Ngannou. A guy that's a good name, but obviously a very dangerous opponent. Jones would be that super fight. Jones would be a super fight where they could make a lot of money. A win over Jones would far more extend their legacy than a win over Francis Ngannou, especially for Stipe, because Stipe already defeated Francis Ngannou. So defeating him a second time, not going to do much. So I think that'd be the it factor. And obviously Jones has contemplated a move to heavyweight. So whoever wins here and retains the belt, whether it's Miocic or Cormier, I think there could be some interest in a potential fight with Jon Jones. Miocic, because it'd be the heavyweight champion fighting the heavyweight face, fighting the light heavyweight face. And, you know, they've shown interest before in the past. And Cormier, obviously, they have that crazy rivalry. And a lot of people wondered how this fight would look at heavyweight, because many think that Cormier is a much better fighter at heavyweight than light heavyweight. So he was only fighting at with his potential capped at 205 pounds. So could be a potential fight for them. Could be a potential fight for them for sure. And so yeah, I don't think they're gonna retire immediately after their fight is done, because they know that there could be a potential super fight with Jon Jones. So what they're gonna do is, thank you very much. Let me just enjoy the victory. I'll talk to you guys later and see what happens with Jones and see if there's any interest there. I think that's what's going to go down. Hit that like, fam. Jay Medina says, yeah, hit the like, fam. Hit the like button. Subscribe and follow me on all socials right here at Danny Segura TV. You already know. Let's get it. Dustin Love. All about spreading the love, Danny. I share the crap out of your stuff. Speaking of which, I wanted to ask how you like doing Hablemos MMA so far, and how's the response been? Great stuff. Congrats. Thank you, Dustin. I got your message about the mask. I checked the mail today, and the mask is not there yet. You got me this cool Fabricio Verdum doing that face. A face mask, obviously, so I can go out and not spread COVID or get COVID. So yeah, I will definitely rock it in a future live Q&A whenever it is that I get it. Hopefully this week, so I can rock it next week. And yeah, thank you for sharing my stuff. I've seen your tweets. I really appreciate it. And how do I like doing Hablemos MMA so far? It's been amazing. For a long time, I've wanted to do content in Spanish. Obviously, it's my first language, and quite frankly, it's a language that over time I've been getting kind of rusty because, I live in the U.S., which mostly everyone speaks English here. I work for MMAJunkie.com, which is a American media outlet. So everything that I do for work, whether it's writing and communicating with my coworkers and interviews, it's all in English. And I live in New York. In Miami, I spoke a little bit more Spanish, but here, obviously, I speak a lot more English than I do Spanish. So over time, don't worry, my Spanish there, I think I speak it very well. But, you do lose a little bit of the... You do lose a little bit, but I think it's obviously not something you can't gain back. It's just, again, getting in the groove of things. But even then, I feel very comfortable speaking in Spanish, and again, it's my native tongue, so it feels nice to talk in Spanish. And yeah, to be honest, I've been interviewing fighters in Spanish for a long time, and then I transcribed that and translated in English for stories with MMA Junkie and formerly MMA Fighting. And then you always see a different side of the Hispanic fighters when they speak on their native tongue as opposed to speaking in English. And quite frankly, I think I would put myself in that category as well. I think when I speak Spanish, you get to know me a little bit more and a little bit more of who I am. And I think maybe a different side of my personality shines through that language. So I've always seen that. And then when I translate it in English, you can still get that. That's why it's important to to have someone that can get, accurate translation. But then one thing's actually hearing it. So I'm really happy that I'm finally exposing that. And, by talking to these fighters and actually having the audio somewhere where fans can listen to it. And also, I hope this podcast as well helps grow the Latin American scene, media-wise, and also for the fighters as well. I hope that, obviously MMA Junkie and USA Today Sports is a huge platform. USA Today is huge, and MMA Junkie being the best site on the damn planet today, it's big. So having the backing of such a strong organization to back this project in Spanish, it's certainly something. And I'm super happy, and I feel super fortunate to have this opportunity. And how has the response been? The response has been great. A lot of people have reached out to me, sending me DMs or comments from Spain, from Costa Rica, Colombia, Mexico, a lot of people in the U.S. that speak Spanish. What other countries? From Chile as well, Panama. Yeah. And I get to look at the analytics of the podcast, and then I look at the map, and it fills me with joy because all the Latin American, all the Spanish-speaking countries are lit up, and there's people watching around the world. So that's been super cool. And, the response has been great. A lot of people have liked it, and a lot of fighters, too. They've enjoyed it as well. And Remezcla, also a media outlet based out of here in Brooklyn, which is basically it's in English, but it's made for Hispanic immigrants. So it's geared towards basically like people like me, right? Immigrants that, came from another country, Spanish-speaking country, and now live in the U.S. They gave me a quick shout out in one of the features that they do as far as the podcast that they're listening to. One of the writers, Francisco Navas, shouts out to Francisco, MMA fan, gave me a shout out there and saying that, he's listening to Hablemos MMA and he's very much enjoying it. So the response has been great. And, by the way, I'm having, I'll break it right now on this live Q&A. Chito Vera will be on Monday's episode of Hablemos MMA to discuss his bout with Sean O'Malley. So that's obviously all going to be in Spanish, and there will be stories on it in English on the site. So excited to hear Chito's thoughts on this huge co-main event bout at UFC 252. So Chito Vera is going to be on the next podcast. And, been a lot of fun, and I look forward to many, many, many more episodes. All right, Nicholas Thompson here. I'm not skipping your previous question, but I think I kind of already addressed it in one of the previous answers. But I will answer this one. Cody at 125. Do you think he's able to compete with that cut? I think of TJ. So you're actually wrong in that one. Much love, Nicholas Thompson, but I'll tell you why. So California was doing this really cool thing. I don't even know if they're still doing it, but at the time, I think I was still with MMA Fighting, I think. This wasn't that long ago. This might have been sometime last year, I think. And they started releasing weights on fight day, like on fight day weights, I guess. Yeah, that sounds weird. But basically, yeah, just to monitor how much fighters were actually cutting. Because one thing is seeing a guy that looks huge and then step in and weigh very little. But, another thing is to see how much he weighs on fight day, to see how much he replenished and how much weight he's actually dropping. So they were doing that. And in one of the instances on that same card, Henry Cejudo, I believe, fought Demetrius Johnson. And Cody Garbrandt also fought on that card against somebody else. And I believe the fight day weight for Cody Garbrandt was much less than Henry Cejudo. And I believe it was close to Demetrius Johnson's. Let me pull that up. This is on a fight in California. Okay, this might have been when Dillashaw Garbrandt 2, UFC 227. I'm pulling up the article right now. Okay, so get this. So on fight day, Henry Cejudo weighed 141 pounds. Is that correct? And Cody Garbrandt weighed in 142 pounds. And then Demetrius Johnson weighed 142, and Cody Garbrandt also, as I said, 142. TJ Dillashaw was the only guy that weighed 150, and you got to keep in mind a lot of the weight you don't get back. Yeah, you gain back some, but there's a point of diminishing return where you just can only gain a certain amount within 24 hours. So Cody Garbrandt is much lighter than TJ Dillashaw, even though he doesn't look small. But I think he might be one of these guys that just has a light frame. And I think he could possibly compete and make 125 pounds. I mean, he's certainly confident that he can, and he's been vocal about it before. The question is, how much would it hinder his performance? I think it could hinder it, but I don't think it would be something like TJ Dillashaw. I really don't, because he's just lighter. So I don't think he will have the same effects that TJ Dillashaw experienced going down to 125 pounds. He could experience some of them, but not all, and especially to the degree that Dillashaw experienced them. So I actually think it's very interesting for Cody at 125. I think there's a lot of big names at 135 pounds. So if he were to leave the division momentarily, because he'd probably come back at some point, it wouldn't hurt the division all that much, because you got so many contenders, so many big names that, if anything, I think it would alleviate a little bit the division. Giving opportunity to other guys. And I think it would spice things up at 125, because he'd be the biggest name in that category, bigger than the champion. So I actually like that 125 move a lot. The only thing is that he's talking already about a title shot against the actual current champion, Deiveson Figueiredo. And I'm not a big fan of a guy dropping weight and getting an immediate title shot, especially if you have no wins in the weight class, and if you not only haven't proven that you can make the weight, but you haven't proven that you can compete, to your question, while making the weight. So I'm not a big fan of that. I think the only exception to that is when a champion drops, like the TJ Dillashaw scenario. I think that you kind of get a pass on that, but given the fact that Cody Garbrandt doesn't have a belt, I wouldn't like to see that, even if that's the biggest fight in the division. I think Brandon Moreno, the Mexican, deserves the fight right now. I think he's beaten all the he's beaten all the top contenders. He's on a crazy win streak. Also former LFA champ, people don't forget, but when the UFC was releasing people from the roster and that division looked to be in jeopardy, the guy went to a different organization, yes, a small organization, but nonetheless, and picked up a belt there. So So yeah, I think Brandon Moreno deserves a shot. I think Deiveson Figueiredo wants the fight. He wants to be active. Brandon is ready to go right now. I think that's the fight to make. And what you do is you put Cody Garbrandt in a showcase fight, very much like the UFC did with Kenny Florian when he decided to drop to 145 pounds. You put him in a showcase fight where he can look good. Have him make his name at 125 pounds. Have him drop. Have him the headlines. Pair flyweight with Cody Garbrandt, right? Have him prove that he can make the weight. Have him prove that he can perform, and at 125 pounds. And then once you got all that hype at flyweight, then you chuck him into a title fight. But immediately, no, I don't like that. I think Brandon Moreno deserves that one. Plus, we talk about we're earlier talking about like rushing prospects and rushing young fighters and this and that. Obviously, Cody Garbrandt, a former champion, no longer a prospect, but you can make a case that the UFC kind of mismanaged a little bit his career by not giving him time to recover from his back injuries, pairing him too quick with that rematch against TJ Dillashaw, not giving him time to recover, and also just the promotionally also pushing him a lot, having to do a lot of media, this and that. So putting him at 125, depleting him to a weight that we don't know if he's going to be able to make it healthy come fight night. We don't even know if he's going to be able to make the weight. We think he could, but okay, let's say he can. Maybe he's depleted and he's not 100% healthy entering fight night. And then you put him against someone like Deiveson Figueiredo, who dishes a shit ton of punishment. Could potentially, I'm not saying it would be, but it wouldn't be far-fetched for Deiveson to win by knockout or something like that on Cody Garbrandt. And potentially, hurt his career. He's already taken some pretty rough KO. So, again, at this point, you already rushed him too much. Proceed with caution with Cody Garbrandt, especially when, diving in new waters at 125 pounds. So give the shot to Brandon Moreno. Have Cody Garbrandt have a showcase fight. Prove to the fans that he can make 125. Prove to the fans that he can compete healthy at 125 pounds. Build that hype, and then throw him into a title fight. So that's what I'd like to see. Good question. All right, I'll answer one more. I went a little over, but I know I started a little bit late. So I'll answer one more and dip out. Also, I have a little bit of an announcement here at the end. So please don't exit out as I answer the last question. All right. Okay. Kids Adventures, Toys, and Games. Okay, an interesting YouTube thing. By the way, actually, no, never mind. Kids Adventures, Toys, and Games. Herb Dean seems to be slipping quite a bit these days. He is really indecisive at times. Then Dan Hardy vid really opened my eyes to his mistakes. Do you think there should be more training? No. At this point, Herb Dean is really experienced. I don't think there should be more training, but there should be more accountability, which is what Dan Hardy was saying in his video. Great video by Dan Hardy. A bit lengthy to my liking, but I think he explained everything thoroughly, and I think he did a great job at pointing out with facts and not just opinions and fiery discussions about, the issue here at hand. I think for the most part, if you just grab Herb Dean's entire refereeing career, I think overall it's been decent. I think at worst, I think overall he is one of the better refs. I don't think he's the best referee because he's made a lot of mistakes, but I think he's also, just like he's had some pretty bad calls, I think he's had some good calls. Unfortunately, in a job like his, it's very much like being a goalkeeper in football. Or soccer, if you're American. It's a job that, it's a thankless job. It's a job that where you fail, people point at you and your mistakes get highlighted. But when you succeed, you're almost expected to be great. So you don't really get much props for that. Some goalkeepers, and only the world class, really get to cross that over. But if you ask somebody, name me 20 goalkeepers, they're gonna have a hard time. If you tell somebody, name me 20 forwards or 20 CBs, 20 center backs, you're gonna have a long list, even longer than 20. So it's one of those jobs. So I'd like to keep that in mind. I think overall Dean's been a decent referee at worst. I think he's one of the better refs, but he has made mistakes. And I think the issue here, and I think Dan Hardy pointed at the issue correctly, is accountability, because he's made mistakes before, but have they been addressed? At least not publicly, and he keeps making them. So I think there needs to be some statements by the commission on these type of mistakes. I think there needs to be acknowledgement of mistakes as well. And I think there needs to be a review with the commission and other officials with that referee that's in question about the mistakes, to show them what they did wrong so they can improve, fix them, and continue to protect fighters in this very, very dangerous sport. I think that's what needs to happen. And Herb Dean, in some cases, has, let fights go a little bit too long. I also think there's a factor, I don't know how much of this is into play, but I think as a community, we've grown a little bit more concerned about fighter safety than we have in previous years. Meaning, I guess in street terms, for lack of better terms, we've become a little bit softer. I think, Herb Dean's, we've seen this kind of situations before in the past, but we're now reacting to it a little bit more, with more urgency, with more care, because since some days we've seen Vanderlei Silva talking about CTE and his mood disorders. We've seen Jacare that he'd be driving to the gym and he would start crying, not knowing why. Recently, Eric Spicely, who got released from the UFC, was talking about he couldn't make the weight for this fight because he was on antidepressants. And by the way, that does mess with your weight, because I do have a friend that's on or was, I don't know, still on antidepressants, and I know that person's weight was affected. And he said it stemmed from his last defeat. So Gary Goodridge is a good example, right? Who else? We've seen all these things. We have more knowledge about CTE and brain damage than ever before. So I think we've grown a little bit more concerned about letting fights go too long. But if you ask the fighters, these guys, they don't really see what we see. I remember when Dan Hardy was gonna fight Dustin Poirier in one of the media days, I asked him, I'm like, hey, by the way, you've been on some fights where people have called for the towel, right? Like the Edson Barbosa one, where people were imploring the referee to stop the fight early. And not only that specific situation, but outside of that, you've been on some pretty crazy wars, man. You've been on some crazy fights, and you're here getting ready to fight Dustin Poirier, likely another crazy fight, and it was. What are your thoughts on sort of the MMA media and experts and fans all of a sudden, as of late, recently been claiming for fights to be stopped much sooner and kind of follow the boxing model? And he's like, look, it's an ass whooping. You're going to take some ass whoopings here and there as a professional fighter. And you get better and you heal up, and that's it. Nothing happens to you. I think, and he said, after you take a couple of ass whoopings like I have in the past, you just realize at the end of the day, you're going to be fine. And look, I'm here talking to you and I'm okay. And I think there's something to that. But certainly, I think there's also a lot of damage that only manifests itself years down the line, right? As you get older. So I see both sides. I think Herb Dean is overall a decent referee. I would like to see a little bit more accountability. I do think he sometimes lets fight go a little bit later, even though fighters want to be in the game as much as possible to have a chance at comeback. I do think it's better overall for the safety of everyone to stop fights a little bit earlier. So I think Herb Dean, again, I just want a little bit more accountability and hopefully, and we don't know if there is. Maybe they do it behind the scenes and they don't release it to the public. But even then I would call for transparency, not accountability, but transparency. So first, transparency. Please let us know what you're doing to improve refereeing over time, especially performance of referees that are in the game. And then, after transparency, let's call for a little bit more accountability. I think that's important. And again, like I said in one of the live Q&As a few weeks back, this goes across any job. Any job is not exempt of this. I have performance reviews where, my boss sits me down and be like, all right, what'd you do this quarter? You did this, and that. You did great. And this, I'd like to see more of that. Awesome. Keep that up on this areas you were lacking a little bit. Let's improve here or this and that. performance reviews happen in any job, so refereeing shouldn't be excluded from it. And accountability happens in any job. You show up late to a job, they're gonna ask, yo, why are you late? You know, simple as that. And then they explain to you, you can't be late because this and that. Same thing as refereeing. Why'd you stop that fight too late? Okay, well, you know you could have stopped it here, and this is the mistake because this can happen. And if you notice, this was a sign that you could have been intervening early on. So if you see it in future fights, you should, do this and intervene. Boom, case closed. And then if issues keep happening after some accountability calls, then you can kind of start putting in question, the referee's ability to do his job correctly. Again, like I said, I think Herb Dean is a decent referee. I think by no means he should leave the MMA community or anything like that. I think overall he does a fine job. Like I said, this is a job where everything that all your mistakes get highlighted, but very few times your good calls get highlighted. So I do think that Herb Dean's better than what people are saying online. Like, he's a shit referee, he doesn't know anything. That's not true. But yeah, that's basically what I like to see. I'm going on a crazy rant here, but you asked for it. That's what you tune in for, me ranting, right? And I'm on oh shit, there we go, spilling my remaining coffee a little bit, but it's all good. It wasn't bad. Great time to wrap this thing up. Anyway, so I had a little bit of an announcement here. I know this is a work in progress. You guys have been kind enough to sort of hang in there with me as I continue with this live Q&As, which this is my number 30. And yeah, so 30 live Q&As. That's pretty good. I'm pretty happy about that. But as you guys know, and I've said it many times on this live Q&A series, that this is very much a work in progress. I've been improving from, the sound with getting this mic to getting a new light. You can see me now crystal clear, and just improving elements of the production, also just workflow as well. You guys have seen some changes over the last few months. So I'm going to do another change, and this is going to be a time change. I really like this 10:30 a.m. start time for these live Q&As on Tuesdays. I was doing it at 7:30, as you may know, but for the last couple ones, I've been doing them at 10:30. I just feel fresher. I'm not trying to talk for an hour after a long day of work and just a long day in general. I think it suits the time zones better because the people in the UK are not listening to me late at night. And, people in the East Coast is 10:30 a.m. And then obviously the West Coast, it'd be a bit early, but I still think, during the week, 7:30, if you're getting up for work or anything like that, you can play this in the background or whatever, or you can catch it later in the day. But yeah, I really like these start times. Plus, I get some coffee in me and very lively, as you guys can see in these live Q&As. So I'm going to switch it and see how it goes. Again, this is a work in progress. Like I told you guys before that I was working on some projects which later came out, Hablemos MMA and all that, and I think that's been looking good, and I'm very happy with that product. I'll say it again. This experience will improve. This product will improve. And this series of live Q&As, I have something in store for this. And it's cool. I have a really cool concept for them. And I'm very much looking forward to it. Just be patient. It requires time, and quite busy these days. So I'm trying to do as much as I can with the time that I got. But so anyway, so part of that is testing new times and seeing what works and what doesn't. I think I'm going to switch it to 10:30 a.m. I am switching it to 10:30 a.m. So next Tuesday, expect me here on this channel at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time. And, if issues arise with that time slot, then maybe I'll reconsider. But as of now, I think I like this time zone. So more and more, we are going towards a better product here, which I'm very happy about. So 10:30 a.m. Tuesdays, expect my live Q&A every single week. Sounds good? So again, a couple reminders. Please give this video a thumbs up. It helps me in the rating and helps me, get this video to reach better audience, not better, but bigger audiences. And subscribe, turn on the notifications bell so you know of my future streams. And share it so more people can know about this. This can grow. And also, I forgot to mention at the top, Super Chat is always open. So if you want to support this channel and its growth and kind of speed up the process of the improvements and all that, feel free to donate in the Super Chat. But also know that it's not a requirement. Just your like and subscription, that itself is good enough. All right. So a couple things. Again, I have another note coming out on Valerie Loureda from my interview on Hablemos MMA. So keep an eye on that on MMAJunkie.com. Next week's episode will be with Marlon Chito Veras. That's going to be a very good one, so looking forward to that. And what else I got on my plate? And that's it. We got fights this weekend with UFC Vegas 6. Pretty good card. If you guys really want me to do it, maybe I'll do a preview for it leading up to it. You guys let me know. Could be down. Just tweet me or something. And yeah, that's it. That's all I got. So appreciate you guys. Appreciate the support. Much love from Brooklyn, New York. And I'll talk to you guys next week.